Hi there, and in this video, we're going to delve into the answer to the question, how do I attain an IEP for a homeschooled child? So we'll talk about the intricacies of getting those services and an IEP and what that means for a homeschooler in this video. The first part of this video, we're going to be looking at what an IEP really is, particularly in the context of a homeschool setup. And second, we're going to look at what those steps are that are involved in getting a formal evaluation done. Thirdly, we'll look at the legal aspects and how that will factor into getting one created and who's responsible for what. Fourth, we're going to be taking a look at implementing that and the importance of the mindset in implementation of this. And lastly, we're going to see how it kind of all plays out in the real world applications of homeschooling and IEPs and special education. An IEP is an individual education plan. It is a plan that's created because a child has shown that they have something interfering with their ability to fully access education. So I do not like using the word disability, but that's what they use. And it can be a whole host of things that are kind of more what we would think of as academically oriented, to things like hearing, eyesight issues, occupational therapy issues, your ability to use fine motor skills, speech and language. There can be a host of things that would fall under the federally mandated, and then states have things that they can expand on that. But it's laid out in law. There's ways of measuring it, right? It has to be able to show that there is an impact on your ability to succeed in school, and the languaging is it can vary from state to state, but it's kind of specific on how you have to qualify. So for a parent who is homeschooling their child, and maybe you're doing this in a co-op kind of setting, you're seeing other children, and you're beginning to go, oh, I don't know, they don't seem to get this quite as well. They seem to have a harder time with their reading, or clearly they've got some issues with speech and they're saying certain words or sounds aren't quite right, or whatever it is you are observing that's making you go, oh, geez, I would like to address this. I don't think this is right. Then you can request testing services. You need to check in with your district. You should be checking, what your state kind of, what the expectations are from state laws and regulations for your district, considering that you are in that district, but you are not attending the public school, what their responsibilities are for providing the evaluations. And you look at and you go through that process to try to get them evaluated, because you need to pinpoint and identify exactly what it is going on. And the evaluation there can be academic testing. There are tests such as the Woodcock-Johnson, which is often used to kind of evaluate their not intelligence, but their development academically speaking. And that can be used for some of those academic pieces. There are evaluations that for speech language, if that is a concern. So there's psychological tests that are done by school psychologists that will evaluate things like processing speed and working memory and aspects like that. So, there are several pieces that go into that evaluation process. And then once you get that testing done and you find out exactly what's going on and whether they qualify, then there's the legal aspect for creating this IEP and determining what those services are that they need. You may very well be able to do those services at home yourself, or you might need to bring them in for special services with maybe a special educator, if that's a possibility, or a speech language person, or an occupational therapist, or a school psychologist, or right? There are different expertise depending on what the challenge is for your child. But that legal document, the IEP, and the legal framework that goes into it comes from all that testing that was done, and then it delineates who's responsible for doing what. And again, you might be able to do some of that, all of that yourself. Other pieces, you might have to bring them to a specialist. So when it comes to implementing this, right, if you are doing this yourself, or even if you have to take your child to a specialist, their mindset, your mindset is crucial for making this go well. I say this often, and I can't say it too much, is your mindset is going to really impact how effective whatever it is they're doing. So the beliefs your child has around going to see the speech person, the occupational therapist, the reading specialist, the whoever it is, or if you are doing it at home, right? Helping your child develop those beliefs around things like it's impossible not to learn, which is a very true statement, and a belief that is extremely beneficial. That's all related to mindset. So your ability to interrupt negative thinking patterns or negative beliefs, limiting beliefs, using your own language, and then help them develop new ones will enhance the success rate dramatically of whatever the individual education plan is. And it is so often overlooked and ignored. And it impacts the child's confidence, their self-image, their perseverance. All of those things get factored in by their mindset. And your mindset as a parent who's going to help implement this, or even if you have to bring the child to a specialist, your mindset will impact how you go about helping shape your child's mindset. So, I say it all the time, but mindset is crucial for overall success in life. It is so important. You need to pay attention to that as well. How this all plays out in real life can be seen in part from some data, and then I'll give you kind of a real life example. But according to the U.S. Department of Education, approximately 15% of public school students receive special ed services. Homeschool students can receive services through public schools as well. In most cases, in most circumstances, where that gets a little bit sticky is if a parent decides that they get all the testing done, realize their needs there, but do not want the child getting them in a public school setting where there's, they're worried about stigma issues or whatever the case may be, and want to do it privately. Then there may be some issues with the responsibility for paying for that, depending on state laws and all of that. I can tell you, though, about a real case of an individual I know who was homeschooled, who had a speech impediment. And in this particular instance, the family chose to kind of go it on their own without getting the testing, proper diagnosis, and all of that. And they could have done that. The school system where they were would have made speech services available, but for some of those reasons I already mentioned about worried about stigma and some of that other things, and not really having a full understanding of what that entailed, the child didn't get those services because they thought they might be able to grow it or they could do it themselves. And unfortunately, in this case, the student developed a speech impediment that is carried into adulthood. But the point being there was that those services could have been or would have been available. The testing would have been available, and the family could have chosen those. And there's lots of would have been then lots of opportunity to get help outside of the school. In this case, they would have had to pay for it. If they didn't choose the school-based things, they would have had to pay for it themselves based on where they were. But the opportunity was there to either take advantage of the school setting and get the proper speech interventions, but they chose not to. So again, that becomes a family decision, and it's one you shouldn't take lightly. Please consider subscribing to my channel and checking out all our other videos. In particular, you might be interested in checking out the video, How Much Does a Homeschool Teacher Cost? And you also might want to check out some of my podcasts, a variety of topics and individuals I've interviewed, and you can find that also on my channel. So check those out today, and I'll see you in the next video.